Hello and welcome back to the Garment Decorators Podcast, coming to you live from the Heat Printing Innovation Centre here in Braintree, Essex. This podcast is for heat printers, garment decorators, anyone is trying to improve their skill set when it comes to garment decoration. I'm joined as always by Molly.
Hello,
welcome.
Everyone.
Before we get started in today's episode, where we're going to be talking all about heat presses and how to choose the right heat press, what to look for in a press, just want to remind everyone that didn't get a chance to listen to the last week that the Global Masterclass is now open for registrations. This is the biggest virtual event of all time for garment decorating. You can sign up at stylesmasterclass.com and it will be on Wednesday the 27th, and it will be a big day full of education and value to really make the most of your training for all of you. So it's going to be a good 7-8 hour day. So make sure you book time out on your calendar to join us live for that. Get your questions answered. There'll be unprecedented access to speakers from across the globe, from every single continent. So it's going to be a really big day. And I'd encourage all of you that are really serious about heat printing, no matter what level you're at, to come join us, because there'll be something for everyone.
Indeed.
Yes.
As Andy is supposed to be watching on YouTube, repping his t-shirt today.
Yeah. So I can attest that it's a wonderful transfer that you get as part of the kits that are also now available on sale. So if you want to do some fusing along and join in for the day, there are some limited number of kits available on targettransfers.com and styles.com, where you can buy a limited kit, which includes t-shirt, bag, sweatshirt, some patches and some transfers. So a really nice kit to kind of fuse along and really understand how to develop your technique for different fabric types, different finishes, different placements. So really, really good addition to the day that I'd encourage all of you to pick up a pack.
I'm excited. It's going to be good.
So today we want to talk to you all about heat presses, because we've been getting lots and lots of questions recently about what heat press should I choose, what heat press should I use to start with, which one should I use to grow my business. So I think it's about time that we kind of sat down and just had a bit more of a long form chat about this, get some of those questions answered. So this is the 2023 edition of which heat press is right for me, including some updates on what's new, what we've been seeing other people investing in, and a decision-making process that we find other people that come into the showroom go through, and hopefully that can kind of bring a bit of insight and bring some ideas for all of you that are still a little bit unsure about which one to start off with.
Yes, and even if you think that you're sure about which heat press you should be buying, I would still encourage you to listen to this, because we have people in, like you said, that come in thinking they know which one they want, and then by the time we've taken them through all the options and all of the different features, they think, oh, actually this one might be better for me and my business and things like that. So even if you think you're sure, still take what we have to say into consideration. Okay, so did you want to start with which level of heat press we should go in for? So whether that's, you're just starting out, or whether you're ready to sort of expand your business and take it to the next level?
Yes, I think it's always very important. It's always kind of making sure that, depending on where you're at with your journey, is kind of understanding the why are you looking to buy a heat press? What is the motivation? Because that should be what guides you above all else, really. So whether that's someone, if you're just starting out, and you're looking for your first heat press, what you should consider when investing in a machine like this, as opposed to if you're perhaps just looking to grow your business, you're looking to add a second press, or if you're kind of at a real growth level when you're looking to add maybe 5 or 6 at a time and really expand out your printing.
Okay, so say, for example, I am completely new and I come into the showroom and I sit down and I go, okay, where do I start? What do I need to look at?
So the first thing really is to, is to go and look on YouTube predominantly, I would say, because there's lots and lots of videos that kind of will show you the presses in depth. I mean, I know personally that I think we filmed a video for every single press, and they're about sort of 10 to 15 minutes long each.
Yeah, so they're quite in depth.
So they're in depth, so you can have a proper look at all the machines and really do your homework, because it's really important to make the decision right the first time. But ultimately, it all comes down again to sort of time, temperature, pressure. So making sure no matter where you're buying heat press from, whether it's us or someone else, is that you can control all three of those things. And I know we talk about this a lot, and so I'm sure some people are bored of it, but it's a good reason because this is the most important sort of 3 controls of your business outside of finance, probably. because everything to do with transfers and vinyl, sublimation, any type of process that involves heat, always comes down to time, temperature, and pressure, because the way that the decoration method has been constructed wants to go at a very specific time, temperature, and pressure. So it's absolutely essential that you have a machine that can control those and control temperature to the degree and control pressure very accurately, because you don't want to be guessing this stuff, and you don't want to have to be spending your whole time calibrating heat presses and doing test prints every other shirt to make sure it's fine. You want to make sure you can have something that is reliable, so you don't have to think about it. Just like, yeah, I know that's going to work, and I can move on to the next one.
Regardless of what level your business is at, whether it's your first press or 10th.
So even if you're just starting out, you still need to be able to control those three, because you want to be able to scale that business, and you want to be able to kind of have a 3 to 5 year plan of what my next heat press might be and what other equipment I might bring in. But also you might get a big job come in pretty early, and you don't want to disappoint that customer. You want to be able to make sure you can fulfill that job, and you want to have return customers. Even if you're just selling ones, you want to make sure that when you decorate that garment, they come back and back and back, because especially when you're small, they probably just won't tell you. They'll just go away. They won't come. They won't. Some people will just complain. Such is the British way.
Even if your product is fine, you still get people that complain.
But a lot of the time, they're also just like, "Oh, that was rubbish. I'm not going to buy from them again."
Yeah, that's similar to what we get. Well, on the pressure point of view, we get a lot of questions on the handheld presses and, how you regulate the pressure for that. And people always go, "Oh, it's fine because I can make sure I'm putting enough pressure through it," but you can never be 100% sure that is accurate if you're doing it, because it's based off of your body weight and how much force you can put through it. And it's not, especially if you're doing a design that's bigger than the press itself, you're not going to have consistent pressure throughout the whole thing. And that's a question we get quite a lot, is the little handheld ones, if they're a good option. And that's probably one of the reasons why you might do the print and it might be completely fine, but after 2, 3, 10, 20 washes, that's when the print starts to come off. That's when the customer thinks, "Oh, I won't go back," and then you just don't get a repeat order. So
it's really important. And I know that sometimes with cheap stuff, people say that like you buy twice instead of once, and most of the people I speak to is like buy 5 times instead of once. So it's very tempting to see sort of 5-in-1 machines or cheap presses you might be able to pick up for a couple of £100. But I guess the question to ask yourself is, how many people do you know, or how many people you've seen online that are running successful businesses with one of those? I've never seen one yet.
Well, I think the common thing is, like you said, buy cheap, buy twice. And I think that 2 points on that. Firstly, that's not necessarily the case, because if we're talking about Haltronics machines, for example, the entry-level machine, which is the max, is around 7?
Starts at 720,
Yeah, so that's, even though for a piece of equipment, it's probably not the cheapest one that's out there, but it's a good entry-level price for a decent heat press that covers all your bases, rather than buying that 5-in-1 or buying something that's maybe half the price of the Haltronics Max. And then 6 months down the line going, "Oh, I need to buy the Max now." And then you've wasted £200-300 on a press that you're going to have to either try and sell and get rid of, or you're just going to be stuck with however much that costs and take that loss. So you will end up spending more money and wasting the amount that you spend on the cheaper press.
And the reason that you shouldn't go near a 5-in-1 press is that you can't control time, temperature, and pressure. Even the normal press platinum tends to be wildly out with temperature anyway. But the reason that we don't sell our own 5-in-1 here at Styles Haltronics is that you can't accurately maintain the heat by swapping the upper platens out. You can swap the bottom platens out because they tend to be flat shaped. That's why we have a specific hat press and we have a specific ball press, because that's the only way you can maintain consistent heat throughout the whole of the platen. It's just not possible to do it changing the top platen for 5 different, for cap, ball, mug, and things like that. It's just not a very good option for you. So you need to be able to look for that time, temperature, pressure when you're first starting out, and that's why you kind of make sure you can have something that is to the degree or as close as possible. and make sure you can at least understand how to change pressure. Not every single entry-level press is going to have a pressure readout, and that's okay. Even our own presses like the Ultronics Max or the Styles Clown Basic, they don't have a pressure readout, but we can tell you how to set it. That's why we, if you go and watch the Max video, you'll see us doing the 2-finger test on it. But basically, for us, because of the way the presses are built and with the over-center pressure, if you can pull the press down with 2 fingers comfortably, that means you're at medium pressure. Because I always say to people, it shouldn't be hard work because you want to be able to do this all day. So if you're looking at presses and they don't have a pressure readout, then contact the person that's selling it or the company behind it and just ask them how to set it. Because if they can't tell you, that's normally a bit of a red flag. Because it shouldn't be hard work. It shouldn't be, you don't have to drive the top platen through the bottom platen to get it to work. It should be really easy. And that's why we talk about having, spending all your time on sales and marketing rather than fixing presses and trying to figure out what's gone wrong.
Yeah,
you have something reliable.
Yeah.
So if I was starting out though, it kind of all really comes down to budget and what functionality you want. So I would say, personally, I would, if I was going to start, I probably would go with the auto open heat press.
You would, or you would?
I would,
right.
If possible. It's not always possible, but the reason is I want that pressure readout personally. So if I was starting out, if I could afford one, and for everyone that's listening, go onto targettransfers.com to see the most up-to-date prices, but you're kind of looking at between £1,100 for the smaller size and £1,720 for the biggest size. So it's
not expensive.
No, that's it. And this is the only piece of equipment you really need to kind of invest in. To run the rest of your business, if you're getting heat transfers, for instance, which is the best way to, especially when you're starting out, and even the biggest companies for apparel decoration on demand, the best way is heat transfers. Then all you need is a reasonable laptop to run it, or if you're doing your own artwork, perhaps a slightly better spec to run Illustrator or Photoshop or something like that. But you don't need lots and lots of other equipment. So I personally would try, if I could go for the auto open, I would go for the auto open. The only difference between the auto and the Max is, one, you get the auto open feature, which is really nice. You both get the interchangeable bottom platens, which is what kind of takes you from again, it's something to look out for with the entry-level heat presses. I would always make sure it has interchangeable platens, because you'll thank yourself in about 6 months' time that you invested that little bit more on it, because it will make it more versatile. But the pressure readout is a big one, and it's the mistake that people make the most. So if I was starting out, I mean, for us, it's easy we could start with a Max because we know what pressure feels like.
If you're completely new to it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're new to it, you don't have the benefit of working in the Heat Printing Innovation Center where you've got access to every single heat press. Having that pressure readout would be a real peace of mind thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I know that everything I do is going to be perfect then.
And also it's so different between different garments as well. Like the Ultronics machines, as we've experienced, are so accurate that the difference between a t-shirt and a sweatshirt, or a t-shirt with and without a transfer, affects the pressure.
Yeah.
And, you wouldn't have to adjust it every time you put like a transfer underneath. It's, between, like we say, 4 and 6 is fine. But if you're swapping between t-shirts and sweatshirts or hoodies and different platens, and it's so much easier for it to just tell you what pressure it's at, rather than you having to feel it, do a test run, check to see if there's if it's overpressured, if it's scorched it, things like that. Just having it tell you straight out, rather than you having to physically try and figure out every single time you change, even t-shirt types, if one's thicker than the next.
Yeah, exactly. So the pressure is everything. So that's why I would either start out with the auto, or maybe even if I could justify it, the Fusion IQ.
Yeah. That's kind of like middle range, isn't it?
Yeah. So it really it comes down to functionality and what you're looking to fuse. So the Fusion IQ is the heat press that has a swing and a drawer, as opposed to being a clamshell.
Yeah.
So if that's something that's important to you, then it's worth investing in that, because that's 2250. But you get lots of warranties on this, which we'll go into in a little bit. But that it really should come down to what you're trying to achieve, more than anything else. So what functionality you need to go with that. So maybe a Fusion IQ might be if you're doing lots of detailed stuff in terms of placement, and you need to have a heat-free workspace where you're not doing it underneath the press, then perhaps that could be a better option for you. But it kind of comes down to what you're trying to fuse under there. Are you going to be doing adult stuff, kids stuff, bags, or even hats? It might be that actually you're just going to start a hat business, and then you only need a 360 IQ hat press. You don't even need the other presses.
That's much more of a simpler conversation.
Yeah, it is. So it all comes down to what you're actually looking to put under there.
Yeah.
So for instance, if you're just looking to do kids stuff only, it might be that you only need the smaller size of heat press.
Yeah. Well, we always say, don't we, what's the biggest size that you ever think you're going to need?
Yeah.
If it's kids now to start you out, but you'd like to print adults eventually, maybe go for the bigger one.
Yeah.
But if you're dead set on just having hat business, 360 IQ, just having kids t-shirts, then it does bring the cost down a bit to get the smaller one.
Yeah, exactly. But so think about functionality, think about what you're trying to do. But also think about, what is a realistic way of paying the machine off? That's kind of like a big thing as well, because obviously it's all very well for me to say I think you should buy a £1,700 heat press because I know it's the best option for a starter, but I know that not everyone has just got £1,700 sitting around.
Some people have investment budgets, which is fantastic, and if you have that money set aside, then brilliant. But if you don't, then we do have other options available, don't we?
So it's important to think about what is a realistic way of paying off the heat press, and what is your realistic time period for paying off that heat press, and whether what is affordable for you to do now. Do you what sort of credit do you have? Do you need to think about finance? Well, the heat press is over £1,000. Do you have finance options, which do have very reasonable rates on them as well, which is something to consider.
That's the only thing, isn't it? Sometimes when people hear the word finance, they think, it's going to cost me like so much more to have.
No, but we've got a really good company called Shah Leasing that we partner up with that can provide really great values for those things.
It just makes it more doable, doesn't it? Like if you want to start a business and you know which press you want and you know that it's going to save you money in the long run, like we've just said about buying cheap, you buy twice, or if you buy a press that you're then going to need to upgrade in a few months' time, if you can get that press initially and spread the cost over 12 24 months, whatever the options are, it just makes it so much more affordable month to month, because it's no different than taking out a phone contract or something. It just brings the monthly payments down, and you can bring in money with your print jobs as you're paying off the heat press, and give it a year and it could be yours.
So the way to figure out these things is to think about what warranty is a good place to start, because that's normally the most common way that people will pay off a heat press is they figure out the warranty, because if you know what the warranty is. Warranty.
You divide it by the time until the warranty's up.
So for instance, if you're looking to buy a heat press, the sort of minimum you should look for, I would say minimum of 30 years warranty on the heating element. We do offer a lifetime on the Hottronics machines. I know that not everyone is able to do that, but I would say you still need to look for at least sort of 30 years, because if we can offer a lifetime and we're the top end, then you should be looking for something at least 30 years as a kind of mid-entry point. We also offer 5 years on the framework, and that's often a big place to start, because you're investing money into a heat press and you want to have the peace of mind that it will last and last and last. So anything from the auto open upwards has the Hottronics Premier warranty, which has a 5-year warranty on the framework. So obviously that gives you quite good, if you break that down, it gives you a good lifetime on that. So we do have some numbers for everyone.
And you did prepare at the time, because this was not sticking in my head.
No. So let's say, for instance, you went with the 40 by 50 centimeter auto open heat press, which is the biggest auto open. If you were to pay that, take the warranty. So let's go with the framework. Obviously, it's very difficult what is the lifetime of a heat press? Depends on how well you look after it. But you do get a 5-year warranty on the framework.
So we're going with 5 years.
Let's go with 5 years, because that is a good place to start, because these heat presses will last, 15, 20 years. If you treat them right. We've got heat presses out the back that have been here for decades and they still work fine. But warranty is a good place to start, because lots of businesses, think about everything you have in a business, you often tend to cycle through them anyway, like things like computers and phones and things like that. So warranty is a good place to start, because it kind of gives you a baseline of things to change. So if you were to look at 5 years at the framework, that would equal to £344 a year. 344 times 5 is what 1,720. So that's the kind of one way to look at it, is you kind of, because you've got that peace of mind of the lifetime warranty on the heating element and 5 years on the framework. It means that if something happens, that you're well covered that way. But if it was £344 a year, that's less than £1 a day to own it. Or
That's quite surprising, actually.
Yeah, and even if you factor in, say it's a working year, it's still going to be sort of just over £1 to actually have it in your business. So if you think about what you can do with the heat press, that's really not a big investment if you're spreading that cost over 5 years, which you can get as a finance option, or even if you're buying it outright and you just want to then, from a business perspective, sort of spread the payoff of your investment over 5 years, then that is a way of quite a good way of looking at it, because it kind of gives you a bit of an insight into what your potential daily budget could be towards owning a heat press. And
that's not a lot for one, like Hotronics obviously being the best heat press brand in the world, and the Auto Open is, I think, even people that have 5, 10, 20 presses, or an Auto Open is still a very valid part of their business. Like, it's a staple. It's
the most important part, apart from perhaps customer data.
Oh, no, but I mean, that as well. Yeah. But I mean, like the Auto Open press itself, we kind of market it as like kind of an entry level press. But if somebody could have a dual air fusion and have an auto next to it, like, they both have great functionality. So to have one of the world's leading presses, just under or just over, depending on how you look at it, £1 a day, to have that is, I think people just look at the big number and go, whoa.
Yeah. So that's the kind of longer term view of owning a heat press, of how you should calculate the actual cost per ownership of that, and the potential time to pay it off. You do want to have an end date of when you pay a piece of machinery off that you have in your business. So that is one way. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is if you want to kind of sprint to the finish,
which a lot of our customers
do. Yeah,
clear off that, pay it off before they get started the next
one. And genuinely the feedback is that when they take this approach, it has worked for them, and most of them tend to pay it off even quicker than the numbers we're going to give now anyway. But let's say, for instance, you're going to be setting up your own brand, and you want to pay off this heat press as quick as possible because you want to start making money from it, or I don't know, perhaps you paid for it on credit, or even invested a bonus from your existing job and you're turning that into your side hustle, or someone, for a family member, is perhaps investing into you and you want to pay them back as quick as possible because you don't want to be indebted to someone else.
No.
When let's talk about the Auto Open first, and we'll come back around to all of the other tiers of presses once we cover other levels. But the Auto Open, for instance, so £1,720, and you can kind of take this number and turn it into whatever you want in terms of accessories and things like that. We're just talking about the heat press on its own at the moment. If you wanted to pay that off, so say you're selling your t-shirts at £20, once you factor in the cost of sort of £2 or £3 t-shirt, perhaps 50p to £1 to decorate it, if you then, whatever money you have left over, it could be somewhere in the region of £10 to £15. If you then wanted to pay that off as quick as possible, you're looking at 135 t-shirts to pay this press off. About £1,700, pay it off, and it's done.
That's not that many.
It's really not.
If you get an order for, I don't know, 10, 20, sometimes even 50, that's 4 or 5 jobs and you're done.
Yeah, so if you're also putting the same amount of effort into sales and marketing and picking up work, then you can really quickly pay it off. I mean, and even if you're just doing, £5 to £10 profit, you're still only looking at a couple of hundred t-shirts as well. Yeah. So even if I'm never going to sell my t-shirts for £20, or that's not my customer type, depending on your customer type, there still should be a good profit margin in there. And if you just want to try and pay it off in the first year, or even in a really quick fashion, it's very quick. We're talking a couple of hundred t-shirts, or 11 t-shirts per month.
Yeah.
And then the way I kind of look at it is, 11 t-shirts per month is a pretty good goal to start off with. If you're just doing it as a side hustle and you're looking to grow, but you've got a kind of vision of turning this into your main hustle, actually that's a good place to start with, because it means that perhaps in year one you can concentrate on selling just 11 t-shirts per month is very reasonable, because that's like one every 2.5 days or something like that. You should be able to achieve that. So there's no reason that you couldn't pay off a heat press in a year, and then at that point you still got that warranty to back you up anyway. But you can start to grow and grow and grow without any machinery cost sort of on your debit sheet that way as well. So that's the kind of the other way that people like to look at it, is how many t-shirts per month to pay this off. And in reality, if you if you could get a job of 50 a month, that means that 10 of those t-shirts could go to pay off the heat press that month, and the other 40 are all pure profit or other investment back into the business to pay off anything else you might have be investing in, or making sure that you're covering all costs, or making sure you're paying yourself.
I was going to say that's the one that I think when you're self-employed, or when you're like printing for yourself, you forget to give yourself a wage, because you're just like, even though you're all there printing and it's your business, it's still your time, and this is still factoring paying yourself for that job.
Exactly. So that's, if I was starting out, that's how I would approach it, and the calculation I'd have in mind is, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to print? And what is my end game? And just to kind of, you can sprint to finish, but also have a bit of patience built into that as well, and be realistic. Like,
don't need to put all your profit.
Think about how many t-shirts you think, what existing customers do you have, who has already indicated an interest. Or perhaps even if you want to think about, if you've got brand awareness that people like, I want to buy a t-shirt when you're selling your t-shirts, perhaps put them up for pre-order. Then if you get, say, 200 t-shirts on your first pre-order, on one of your first pre-orders, then you could be like, well, I could just pay off my heat press with this order. Then everything past that point, the heat press is all owned, and it's just going to sit there and be a profit machine for me.
Quite literally. That's the tagline. It's profit machine.
Yeah.
Heat press with profit machine. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that's like the entry level press. 11 t-shirts per month, 135 per year if you're, like you say, sprinting to the finish. But what if you were going in at sort of the Fusion IQ level? So we briefly touched on it, but this is sort of the next one up. It's kind of an intermediate level press. It's got other features like the IQ controller and the swing and draw, which we can talk a bit more about. If you had investment, or if you had enough, startup funds to have this as your first press, then that's a fantastic option. But alternatively, this could be someone that maybe has had like a 5-in-1 press, or a cheaper sort of press, and they're making enough from it now that they want that reliability. They want that, all of the features from electronics, and they're considering this is quite a good press for those kind of levels as well, like switching over to Hotonics.
Okay, so talking about kind of established printer, I'm going to assume that if, rather than having a 5-in-1, that they've already made the mistake of the 5-in-1 and invested in something like an auto open anyway. Okay,
eliminate all errors from this.
Because I'm not really seen many businesses be super successful with a really cheap heat press. Or you might have a funnel, like a good funnel coming in, but it's probably a very leaky funnel. Especially when it comes to a return business, because then you're not going to be lasting as long, or it could be, or you're just selling sort of promo stuff, stag do and hen do stuff that doesn't get washed and sits in a cupboard and no one realizes it's not very good. But in terms of like, if I was thinking more like, okay, I'm adding another heat press, or I'm wanting to invest in the top of the range thing because I want to take myself to an elite level. So maybe rather than sort of talk through the functionality, we'll go the other way around and talk about the actual number of t-shirts it takes.
Okay, reversing back.
I think that's quite good for perspective, because actually the amount of t-shirts it takes is still not very many.
No, and we're talking, like you said, quite a step up in terms of functionality from the Auto to the Fusion. So the Auto is 11. And the Fusion t-shirts per month, and the Fusion is 14. 3 t-shirts more per month.
So that's it. If there is a real, if you're okay, I can afford either an Auto or the Fusion. Be like, I kind of want the functionality of the swing and draw, which I know some people do. It's a real fine margin between, once you're at the point where you can choose between the two, purely pick up functionality, because the amount of t-shirts it takes to pay the whole thing off
It's minimal.
It's minimal.
Yeah.
The warranty is exactly the same as well.
Oh, okay, that's good. So so the auto is 1720 and the manual fusion is 2250. So that's 172 t-shirts total versus the 135 for the auto open. So like you say, when you do break it down, it is only 3 t-shirts per month more, which is more than achievable if you are if you have a successful printing business.
Exactly. But then if we were to talk about perhaps the dual layer fusion, which is the top of the range, so this is where, and I think when we say IQ, what we mean is we're talking about smart heat presses. So a smart heat press like the IQ, so whereas the auto and everything above it has the time, temperature and pressure readout, the IQ comes with a special LED IQ controller in the front of the heat press, which has all recipes preloaded. It also connects to the cloud, so you can get reporting back. You can see how hard your heat press is working. But it's really good for pre-programming how to do every single transfer, vinyl type, and your own recipes off the back of that as well. But if we're looking to get the best of the best heat press, so there is no better heat press than the dual layer fusion in the world, and we'll get into one in a sec. You're still only looking at, for the year one payoff, 43 t-shirts per month. So
to pay that whole heat press.
Pay the whole heat press off in 1 year.
Right. Okay.
It's 522 t-shirts
Total. It's not bad.
But if you think of the sort of customer or sort of person who's listening that should be thinking, if they're thinking about dual layer fusion, this is the volume. This is when you start to get into the volume game. If you're just doing sort of 10s and 20s, maybe the dual layer fusion might be overkill for you. But if you're starting to get into those 100s, 200s, 1000s, and basically you're full all day, you're 7 hours a day, you're slaving away over your heat press because you're that busy, then you're at a point where you need to think about something like a dual layer fusion, because it's not only is it going to make your life easier from an actual application point of view, but it has 2 heads on it. So it means you can actually increase your volume without having to increase your staff numbers.
You can double your output with one heat press.
Well, probably it's more like
80%.
60% probably increase, I would say. But it will get quicker and quicker the more you start to use it and you start to create a pattern and a system for yourself. So you're still only looking at sort of 522 t-shirts. So if you're using a dual layer fusion, and lots of our customers are kind of at dual layer fusion or other ones where you're doing sort of between 200 and 500 a day anyway.
Yes.
I mean, with those numbers, you could justify at a lower level, but that's kind of what you need to be shooting for. That's the sort of volume you can get through per user. So if you were to say, for instance, you were doing 200 shirts per day, the actual payoff this machine is going to be rapid.
It'd be like a week?
Yeah, exactly. you could just put aside a certain amount of jobs or a day a month, and you might be able to find a couple of days a month you can pay off this machine quite quickly. So, or
even if you were doing 50 shirts a day, that would still be a payoff within like a month. So that's still pretty good.
So it's something to consider, is that even we always talk about the dual layer fusion being the most expensive heat press. It's not actually the most expensive heat press in the world, even though it's the best heat press. But it's £7,120. But in terms of versus other equipment, versus like say an embroidery machine, which could cost you £15,000 to £50,000, depending on the functionality, or some of the big DTG printers, which start at 25,000, could have got up to $500,000.
Yeah.
But they don't have any real benefits above having a dual layer fusion. Especially now with the quality of a product like Ultracolor and Ultracolor Max and a 1:5 color screeners, that actually, £7,000 for having the absolute best of the best, something that would be the core piece of your business, is really not a big investment. And it also has every single functionality that you could ever dream of. And that's why when we talk about what functionality you want, functionality of the dual layer fusion is the most of the Ultronics heat presses have hacks on them, so they all have interchangeable patterns. You can find perhaps a caddy stand to put them on, or a caddy cart, or an equipment cart. But the dual layer fusion has so much of it built into it. It has the threadability on both sides. So again, we've talked about this a lot when it comes to productivity, but the the dual air fusion is like a super athlete. It's like one that's ready for the World Cup every single day, because it's one that's always at peak condition. It's got threadability. It's got laser guidance for placement. It's got quick slips as standard. It heats up really quickly. You can set it to come on at a very specific time of the day. It's got every single bell and whistle you could ever need. Air powered. So the pressure is all controlled by a compressor, so it takes human error out of the way. So again, you don't have to worry about someone ignoring the pressure readout.
That's a big one. That makes a massive difference.
So this is the machine that is, it's just like it's a peak athlete, but it can do this every single day of the week. It can go across multiple shifts. So if you're looking to like really upscale your business, it's a very small investment in terms of what you can get back from it. Like say having improved productivity, so let's say even if we were conservative, like when you're first starting out, you're getting used to it and you're like, well, I'm 30% quicker. Okay, 30% quicker. What does that mean in a year? Let's say we work on a working year of 220 days a year. That could be 70 days additional you have a year to do jobs. I mean, that is ridiculous, really, when you think about it. You can increase your revenue by 30% by investing in a £7,000 machine.
Yeah.
It just seems like...
Which will make you a hell of a lot more than £7,000.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about sort of going from intermediate to expert and the real growth this year, then there's nothing like the dual air fusion to do that to your business.
Yeah, and also if you are, like you say, increasing your productivity like that, you have the opportunity to take on more jobs, but also you can give yourself a bit more time off and still make the same amount of money. Yeah,
exactly. So that's how you want to look at your machines. Is remember always time, temperature, pressure. I need to be able to control them.
Mm-hmm.
But then in terms of like the question we always get asked is what's the difference between these presses?
Okay.
It's always functionality. So you start off with the max, you've got time and temperature. Go with the auto, you've got pressure readout, you've got the auto open. You go to the Fusion IQ, you've got swing and draw. You go above that, you've got air powered machines or double air powered machines. So it's a quite a simple calculation, but it all comes down to what you as the user or the operator that you're buying this heat press for, what are their main things that they can be fusing, and what is the sort of environment they need. All of the machines can be put onto caddy stands that can be height adjustable. I know that's a big thing for some people, is that you have a tall person and a short person working it. You want to be able to adjust the heights. It's easy to do. Just wind it up and down if it's on an equipment cart. So all these have the functionality. So that's just a quick run through of what to look for in a heat press and where you're at. But we do want to talk a little bit about what is new, what the questions we're seeing people ask for 2023, what are the most popular buying choices for 2023. Obviously, as the UK's largest supplier of heat presses for professionals, we kind of do have an insight into what people are looking for and what people are after. So we wanted to share some of that with you today to kind of, so you can kind of put yourself in other people's shoes and understand what other people are looking for and, what your competitors are buying, really.
That's a good point, actually, yeah. And also, I kind of want to touch on, just circling back to the dual air fusion, the IQ controller you mentioned, about taking human error out of the equation. Yeah. With the reporting features, you can look back and see how the press was printing at a particular time. So if there is a job that goes out that you're not like 100% sure, or someone comes back and complains or says, oh, this wasn't quite right, you can pinpoint exactly, what went wrong and what was wrong with the job at that time. So that's another thing about the IQ screen. But sorry, circling back to 2023.
So the biggest questions that we get around heat presses are obviously, other than what's the difference between a heat press, is it's for those that are established businesses. It's nearly always about what can I do to be quicker and faster. I get that a lot over the last 6 to 12 months is people coming in or requesting appointments because they're like, okay, we've survived the last couple of years. Now I want to go supersonic. What do I need to do? What heat press should I get? What other things do I need to invest in? Because everything comes down to productivity. We've spoken about this loads over the last year, but understanding the time it takes to fuse something is very important. And what can you do to bring that time down without changing the recipe of the transfer? Because we know that doesn't work.
Not so compressing.
But you can look at, say, the heat, let's say ultracolor always needs to be pressed at 12 seconds for 120 degrees.
Okay.
with a 3 to 5 second pre-press. But it's everything around that is important. Is like, how quick does it take? How quick is it for me to put t-shirt onto the press? That you can change.
Yep.
Either by quick slips or lower platens to make it easy to glide on and off. Or like, how can I get my placement right? So using the lasers on a dual layer or the standalone laser alignment tool that you can put next to your heat press. So you could like, hey, I put a grid on my top. So if I put the top on every single time, it shows me where to put it. Again, it takes out that 10, 15 seconds in placement time. And so if you can, you could save 15 seconds per shirt just having a caddy stand and a quick slip. Or if you're using a dual layer fusion, you can get even more savings because you've got that on two sides. But start to understanding your where your weakness is in terms of like productivity, and then finding the right heat press to match that is the big thing. And that's why more and more people have adopted the dual air fusions and the air fusions, is because they're so much quicker and so much more efficient and so much more accurate than anything else. And they want to be moving on to the next stage of their business. They want to be growing. They want to have heat press that can grow with them. So that's why we see a lot of people adopting those machines, but especially the bigger customers. And some of them are buying 5, 6, 10 at a time because they want to be the best of the best. But even if you're just buying one, like say 60% more productivity in terms of volume, that means that you can either, from a competitive point of view, you can either get more volume in, which is great. But I know that the biggest sort of sell point for everyone that's listening is turn time. So if you can get 60% more volume, you can bring that turn time down so much quicker by leveraging these productivity hacks, by saving 10 to 15 seconds here every single time.
Yeah, reducing your overall print time.
Yeah, it's not just those 10 days, 55 days you could get back at the end of the year. It's actually those 2 days and 5 days I can get back in that month.
That you can slot other jobs in, or you can take on some last minute things.
Yeah, or for a job that normally takes 3 days only takes 2 days now.
Yeah, you've saved on time.
You save that time. That might be enough to secure you that job and get you that repeat business going and going and going.
Yeah.
So productivity and investing in the best, most productive machines is something that a lot of people are doing at the moment.
Yeah.
And that's why when we talk about entry level, we tend to talk about the auto open, because that is not just from our kind of opinion of what we would do personally, but actually in terms of what people are doing, that is what's happening. That's not just like our opinion or what we want to.
Yeah, people are coming in actually physically asking about that specific press. They're not coming in saying, oh, which one would you recommend? They go, I think I want this one. I just want to see it before I buy it. That's normally the case, isn't it?
And it doesn't even just apply to people coming in. I would say that like, this is like, no, not even just us trying to say what we want to say. It's like the truth of the matter is that the most common starter heat press is the auto open heat press. That is what our, what is coming in and what's going out of the building. So when we talk about putting this podcast together, we always want to be very truthful with everyone, and that is what we're seeing. And you can kind of take that information, use it if you do or don't, but that's just what we're seeing, is that people are investing that slightly a little bit more because they want that functionality, because they want to start off with that competitive edge of having that pressure readout, knowing that from day one they're making perfect garments.
Yeah, and like you were saying about the efficiency and productivity hacks, like they're available for the auto open up or the max upwards as well. Like the quick slips, you can get those for any press. You can swap out the platens on any press. You can get the portable laser alignment if you want to get the placement right every single time. There are so many things you can do to increase efficiency at every single level of heat press. But obviously the dual air fusion just comes with everything nicely pre-packaged in a box for you.
Lots of people, and again, going back to like the productivity, the quick slips, is that even at the max level, people are thinking about putting together businesses in the box. So our bundle is always very popular.
Yeah, they sell out very quickly
because we include. If you go onto the webpage, you can see it under the heat press drop down. But buying it as a bundle, because you can get a saving on the products that way, and getting, say, an auto open with a counter caddy or a caddy stand, getting your first platen, getting a quick slip, getting the release paper, everything you need to get started, because that will last you for it will last you to the point until you need to get another press in, until you need to expand your business. And then, they're still very easy to pay off. There's finance options available, even if you're bundling products as well. So it's all, it comes down to the why again. It's like, but most people are kind of going for a business in a box approach because they want to have everything. We've spent a lot of time, surveying customers and asking about what they need to get started, and really fine tuning these bundles as well to make sure that they are the most efficient way to buy heat presses. And the great thing is they're always in stock as well. So it's really, really easy to get started that way. But for me, it all comes down to functionality. What is the why? Making sure I can control time, temperature, and pressure, and also looking towards productivity, even if you're just starting out, because it will come up quickly before you're ready for it to come up. So if you can start out being more efficient, it means that when you start to get those bigger orders in, it won't be a shock to the system because you'll already be very efficient, and you'll already be having a very lean production time at that point as well.
Yeah, starting out with it is the best way to go forward, isn't
it?
And it's not even like it's a massive thing. Like you say, it's one accessory to put on your press that can save you hours, if not days and weeks a year. That's, the easiest thing you could possibly do. We're not giving you a really complicated, equation to improve your efficiency. It's a couple of items.
Exactly. So just to summarize for everyone, if do your homework on this, go and look on YouTube, look for all heat press reviews, look for product guides, but do make sure you're looking for time, temperature, and pressure to control. Make sure you get a really good quality warranty on your heat press, because it's going to be the most important part of your business. And make sure you've got functionality so that even if you're buying entry-level presses, you can still do things like change patterns and get quick slips, no matter where you're getting your heat press from, because you will regret not having that functionality built in later, and you'll just have to buy another heat press.
Which isn't ideal.
And
buy the right one to start with.
And that's it. And if you've got questions, do get in touch. We're always happy to talk through. We'll always give you the advice on which is the best possible press for you. We won't oversell you something, because we don't want to saddle you with debt. We want you to start off right. We want you to be successful. So we will always give you very honest advice. And if you're, do join us on our Friday lives. It's always a good place to start with. We do have this big event. The event at the end of September on the 27th at starsmasterclass.com. It's free event. Like I say, it is like having a university education in 7 hours. So if you're this is mostly aimed at sort of intermediate to experts, people who are looking to grow their business, but there's enough in it for people who are first starting out. There will be some heat press basics, how to get started as well. So as you're part of your research journey, do join us for that event, because you'll get the chance to ask those questions. Even if you think they're stupid, do ask them, because there can be live Q&A sections of it as well, where we can answer all of these types of questions and make sure you get started correctly that way as well.
Yeah.
So head to starsmasterclass.com to sign up for that. But just keep asking us questions and let us know anything you'd like to see that you don't think you've seen in a video, because we can always bring that to your attention as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much to everyone for... You finished, right?
Yeah, I'm finished.
I'm good. Thank you very much to everyone for listening or watching on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe whichever platform you are watching on, and we will be back next Thursday with another podcast.